Hello friends, and welcome to the Gamer Downs MMORPG Spotlight. And today the spotlight falls on Champions Online. Yep, it's another one of them free-to-play games that you can get off Steam now. You can also get it off the Champions Online website as well, but it's so much easier to get it through Steam. Yeah, way easier, so might as well go that route. You still have to make an account though. You always have to do that for these MMOs, and that's something to just keep in mind. Yeah, it's getting kind of a pain. I mean, I have like 10 or more MMO accounts, and you know, it gets a little annoying to have to constantly enter your email and all that, but they got to do it because they will want to charge you in one way or another. Even though it is free to play, they will always find a way to, you know, get a few dollars out of you. And here we are looking at the character creation, and that is one thing that superhero MMOs have always done so well. With the exception of maybe DC Universe, they could have did a little bit better with that, but City of Heroes, Champions Online, you know, just look at the wide variety that you can choose from. You know, when I hit the random button, you can be practically anything you want, you know. And one thing about Champions Online that I really don't like is the graphic styling. You know, I know that they are trying to make it look like a comic book, but some things just do not work in video games, and this has been done way too much. I mean, it's been done quite a few times, and it's always been a dismal failure usually. And let me think of one game that Good Day LA. Oh yeah, with American McGee's, and it was made with this black outline styling, you know. I don't know, I'm just not a really big fan of that. I think that using the traditional, you know, blend is so much better. But I can't fault them for being different, you know. I applaud games trying to do something different. You know, it's just I really do not think that black outline comic book style works very well. It works well for a comic book, but for a video game, it just kind of seems like the things are cut out and just pasted on top of a background. And I don't know, it just doesn't jive too much with me. I'm gonna go ahead and load up this character I already have made and kind of looked around the tutorial area. I'm only in the beginning area, and this game seems to have a lot to offer. It's a massive game. I've played several hours now, and I don't think I'm even out of the tutorial zone, really. There's seems to be quite a bit to offer. And with like other free-to-play games, you know, there's also things you can spend real-life money on and upgrade your character. So you might want to check that out too. Such as costume pieces and, you know, the like. Same as like with City of Heroes, you can buy several booster packs in that game, and it unlocks several different costume styles to further diversify your character. That is something like DC Universe doesn't have, really. It's you can change your looks and things like with the different gear in the game, and it has kind of a nice panel in DC Universe where you can put, you can hide certain items. You know, it has really good wardrobe panel, but it has a very limited selection. And like Champions Online, City of Heroes, it has a very large selection. So, and you know, that it's one thing. You know, like I mentioned a few seconds ago, is you know, why can't WoW? Why can't Rift? Why can't Lord of the Rings and all these other games, you know, take a hint from these superhero type games and give us the custom ability for our characters? You know, they put so much work into a game, and yet they make us all look like clones half the time. Even in WoW, you know, I mean, it's like I have so many characters that look so similar to my other characters. It's you know, it's just there's so much more that could be done. And I think the superhero games, they show, you know, what can be done. And I wish that, you know, other medieval type games would take note and do the same as well. And one thing I've noticed about all these free-to-play games, they're all very crowded. I guess because they're free-to-play, and people are finally discovering that free-to-play isn't always bad. You know, for a long time, even myself, you know, I thought, well, you know, free-to-play, there's going to be just so much riffraff or whatever. that is not true. You know, there's riff-raff in pay-to-play games as well. You know, there's plenty of riff-raff in WoW. Plenty of riff-raff in Rift. That kind of rhyme, but yeah. And you can see you can interact with a lot of the objects in this game as well. You can destroy cars. You can pick up cars. You can pick up small, objects and things like that. But you can also do that in DC Universe as well. You know, I think they did a little bit better job in DC Universe. The combat in Champions Online here, I don't know. It's kind of hard to get into personally. I feel like City of Heroes has much better combat stylings. This I feel like it's just so mechanical and really not all that inspiring. But I am still low level, so maybe it gets more inspiring as we move along. But looking further ahead at the abilities I have that unlock, a lot of them just seem to be upgrades of the abilities I already have. And here we are on one of our first missions, and this is a retrieval mission to pick up a couple items. It's standard fare for all MMOs. You go pick up an item, and you see I walk right by it the first time, and they glow like in every other MMO. So you're not going to be unfamiliar with what you're doing too much. I mean, the combat styling, it's similar to WoW a little bit. It's more similar to WoW than like City of Heroes is really. You see the object I need is right there, but the combat, it's fairly easy, and I'm sure that I could remap my keys where it felt a little bit more comfortable, but it felt very uncomfortable kind of combat. It felt very, I don't know, like I said, like mechanical. But this is still just the tutorial zone. You eventually get to unlock flight and super speed and all that good stuff. I'm sure that adds a whole new dimension to the combat. But as for now, you are legging it in the tutorial zone. So you have to eventually unlock your travel abilities, is what they're called. City of Heroes is very instanced. There are lots of instances of the same place you are. If you know what instancing is, it is duplicates of the same area, same zones actually, and they use the exact same blue walling in that City of Heroes does. And I'd heard that when I used to play City of Heroes, that Champions Online was kind of like the poor man's City of Heroes. No offense, Champions Online, but I'd always heard that it was the one that came up along to compete with City of Heroes and kind of fell flat and fell short. And I think a lot of it has to do with the graphical stylings and the combat, not being as smooth, and there's a lot more to offer in City of Heroes. I mean, if you're looking for a superhero game, then I would recommend going and playing City of Heroes. But if you're looking for just a free superhero game, then you really can't look much further than Champions Online. I think it's one of the only ones, actually. I think I accidentally said City of Heroes when I meant to say Champions Online. That's probably going to happen quite a bit. I imagine that I'm going to say City of Heroes when I mean to say Champions Online more than I'd like to, but I don't know. It's because I played City of Heroes for about a year or so, and it is a really good game. But you see the blue walling? Yeah, that is the walls to the instance, and once you pass the blue wall, you are into another instance of the game. And there are several instances of the area that you are presented with. It's like phasing, except you're not in the exact same area. And City of Heroes does have the exact same blue walling, and Champions Online has it's identical to what you would find in City of Heroes. Only recently has City of Heroes, with their latest expansion Going Rogue, done away with the blue walling. Finally looks pretty good now. But the blue walling was something that I've always really hated in both of these games. Well, I hate it in this one now since I'm just trying this one out, but I always hated it in City of Heroes. But something that they shouldn't have copied if Champions Online was copying City of Heroes directly. That is something they should have left out. The questing in Champions Online is very similar to DC Universe, actually. A lot of the questing in DC Universe was done in the open world. And in City of Heroes, most of the questing is done inside buildings, actually. Like, you'll go to a door of a building, which will be randomized, so probably different every time. But I always thought that was something really cool that City of Heroes did that no other superhero game really has done. You know, it kind of gave a more realistic feel to the, you know, like you never knew which door you were going to be entering, and actually, you know, but you know, all the missions were inside, so that was kind of a downfall. But yeah, there's a lot of familiarity between Champions Online and DC Universe. Like this whole area right here is very, very similar to DC Universe, and you know, even like a lot of the alien stylings look very similar, actually. The one thing that DC Universe has over Champions Online or City of Heroes is the licensing of all the famous characters, you know, the Joker, Batman, Superman, Brainiac. Yeah, it has all those guys, and that is something no other game, no other superhero game will have. But, you know, I played DC Universe also. I played right when it came out, and it was pretty fun for about a month and a half. And then you just run out of crap to do unless you raid, and the raiding's not that great either. I don't know, there's just not a lot of motivation in DC Universe to continue to keep, you know, building your character, really. In DC Universe, you have like actual gear with stats on them, and in City of Heroes and in Champions Online, you seem to have gear that enhances your character's abilities. So you don't really lose your costume, you know, you keep your costume. And you can keep your costume in DC Universe as well, but it's a whole different complete system. And like City of Heroes, they have enhancement slots, and you can put enhancements in these slots to enhance your character and make your character more powerful. And that seems to be the case for Champions Online as well. It has slots that you can slot gear into, which, you know, do have stats, but, you know, they all have stats, but they don't show on your character as gear, you know what I mean? In DC Universe, the gear is actual costume pieces, and in City of Heroes and in Champions, you have to buy your costume pieces, like, separately, you know what I mean? Like, from earning the points in the free-to-play model, and you can buy different pieces of costume wear, or in City of Heroes, you can buy different booster packs. And you can also earn different costume pieces through playing the game, like doing missions and things like that. Besides the character licensing in DC Universe, it is a beautiful game. It's just it doesn't have any content. I'm sure that Champions Online has much more content since it's been around for a few years now. And City of Heroes has a ton of content. So in comparison of, you know, I keep comparing these three superhero games because I've played all three of them. And out of all three of them, City of Heroes is by far the best. Even though the graphics aren't as great as DC Universe or has the licensing of DC Universe. It has so much more content, and the stories are so much better, actually, and you really feel involved in the missions, and you really can identify with the villains and the heroes in City of Heroes. So yeah, it is one of my favorite games, but it has changed quite a bit over the years, and while there is quite a bit of solo content, once you hit max level in City of Heroes, it's forced group. So if you want to advance your character into the incarnate system, you're forced to group, and there's no other way around it right now. They will probably take that limitation off and make it soloable one day, but as for now, you will hit a wall. And while I am not a huge fan of the graphical stylings of Champions Online, it does have something over City of Heroes, and it has something over DC Universe, and that is, it is free to play. So there's no reason not to, you know, try it out yourself and see if you like it. You know, it's free. The graphics, you know, they kind of grow on you after a while. But, you know, like I said, I'm just not a really big fan of the stylings, you know, the comic book styling like they have. You know, you can see how my character just seems to be kind of pasted on this background here. So I'm not a big fan of that. And like I said, if you're willing to shell out a little money, then City of Heroes is your best buy if you're looking for a superhero game. Another downfall to Champions Online is the lack of licensing, you know. Nobody knows any of the heroes or anything like that. At least I don't. I know all the DC Universe heroes, and it's very easy to get to know the City of Heroes really fast. But in Champions Online, I have no clue who any of the good guys are, who the bad guys are. I've run across a couple of the heroes, but it took me a few minutes to, you know, realize that was actually one of the heroes, and he was offering a group quest right off the bat. But you know, in City of Heroes, you get introduced to the heroes almost immediately, and you're doing quests for them and things like that. You're learning their story and their strife, and you see these Korean letters that keep popping up on the corner of my screen. I don't know what in the heck that's all about. It's just all of a sudden somebody speaking Chinese. I don't know. Champions Online does have a looking for dungeon tool and all those things. From the questing, which is all I've experienced, it's very similar to DC Universe, and it's very similar to City of Heroes. The quests, such as there's a hostage surrounded by 2 or 3 enemies, and you just have to kill the enemies. Boom, they're free. Or an escort quest, or, you know, a collection quest. That's what I've come across so far. I haven't come across anything really unique. DC Universe had some unique quests, actually. It had some pretty cool use of physics. It's a lot different than Champions Online, and it's a lot different than City of Heroes. It's almost like a first-person shooter split, you know, MMO, you know. It's got a lot of, like, Prototype. If you've ever played the game Prototype, that's what it reminds me of a lot. And I really love the movement in DC Universe. But the story, it fell really short because it had such a lack of content. You know, it's just like, boom, everything run out. As for the story of Champions Online, I really have a hard time getting into it because I don't know any of the characters. You know, these bad guys, these bug type guys, which are very similar to the alien invasion that was happening in DC Universe Beginning Zone. You know, I don't know who these guys are. I know they're the bad guys, and I know that I'm supposed to kill them, but there's just not really a lot of motivation, honestly. And in like DC Universe, you know, you have at least motivation, and in City of Heroes, you have motivation. I mean, you can tell the bad guys immediately, and they will display their evilness. You know, here you just don't really feel it as much, and it's really kind of hard to get into the story. For what I've gleaned from the story so far is you're one of the up-and-coming heroes, which seems to be the running theme in all of these superhero games. You're an up-and-coming hero, and you just happen to be in the area, and you just are paying your dues. But, you know, something that I really have never understood in all of these superhero games is you're a superhero, and you're doing just such menial tasks all of the time. DC Universe did one of the better jobs, but still, you were doing a lot of grunt work, which, you know, I would just love it to be just a complete epic story like it should be. You know, you are a superhero, you know, you should be doing superhero stuff. But no, you're half the time you're just doing grunt work for Joe Schmo. But as I mentioned very early on, there are a lot of people playing Champions Online. So there's obviously something here, and I'm sure that the game gets a lot more interesting, and you get a lot more involved in the story as you know, read your quests and get more involved in it. and do the dungeons and all of those things. And I thought, like, you know, some of the quests were pretty cool, like this one where you had to destroy rubble to free one of the citizens. I thought that was pretty neat. That was something I haven't seen in the other two superhero games. So, you know, Champions Online, it does have charm to it. And I think that as you get higher levels, that charm, you know, will grow on you and you will start to develop caring for your character more. But it takes a while to get into this game, I believe, and at least it's free to play. At least you can play it for a while and decide, is it for me? You've got to see the graphics, you've got to see how the controls work and how some of the questing works, and you can't beat the price, you know. I think you might like Champions Online if you're looking for a superhero game. Like I mentioned, the drawbacks to it that I didn't like were the graphical stylings. And if you can look past those graphical stylings, or perhaps you like them, you know, everybody's different. You know, there's a strong possibility you might like the way these graphics look. I couldn't look at these graphics for a long period of time without a migraine headache. I need very easy on the eyes graphics for me personally. So this has been Dark Hostess for the Gamer Down with a quick look at, you know, Champions Online. I believe I will have another spotlight of this game as I get higher level in the game. You know, from what I could see, you know, it's very similar to City of Heroes and very similar to DC Universe Online. But unlike those games, this game is free. Be sure and thumbs up videos and subscribe if you haven't already. And join me next time for the next Gamer Down MMORPG Spotlight.